Chosen one. This message is not reaching you by accident. God says the reason your life has been so quiet lately is because heaven has been hiding something from the eyes of people who never truly wanted the best for you. While others assumed you were falling behind, struggling, forgotten, or losing battles in silence, God was preparing a sudden shift that nobody around you saw coming. And the frightening part is this. The moment your blessing becomes visible, the energy around you will change instantly. Some people who ignored you will suddenly become interested in your life. Some who doubted you will begin watching you closely. And others who smiled in your face will secretly struggle with the fact that you made it through seasons that were supposed to break you. God says that is why you were told to move in silence. Not every blessing is meant to be announced while it is growing. Some victories must stay hidden until the appointed time, because envy is real, jealousy is real, spiritual attacks are real, and sometimes the greatest danger appears right before elevation. You cried in private. You suffered in silence. You kept going while nobody understood the battles happening inside your mind. But heaven saw every sleepless night, every betrayal, every moment you almost gave up. And now, something is changing. The doors that stayed closed for years are about to open suddenly. The same people who overlooked you will soon be shocked by what God was building behind the scenes. But before that happens, God revealed something disturbing about the people closest to you, something you need to recognize before this next season begins. The hidden season. Nobody understood. Chosen one. People saw your silence, but they never saw the battle. They saw you disappear from conversations, withdraw from crowds, and move differently, but they had no idea what you were carrying internally. What looked like distance was actually survival. What looked like weakness was God rebuilding you in private. There were seasons when you felt completely abandoned. Financial pressure kept growing. Opportunities disappeared at the worst possible moments. You watched others move ahead while your own life seemed frozen in place. And the hardest part was pretending to be okay while your spirit was exhausted. Some nights you smiled in front of people and cried the moment you were alone. You kept asking God why everything felt delayed, why relationships kept failing, why support disappeared when you needed it most, why you always felt misunderstood, even around people who claimed to love you. But God says this hidden season was never punishment. It was preparation. While people judged your life from the outside, heaven was transforming you internally. God had to separate you from distractions, from unhealthy attachments, from environments that could not carry your future. The isolation hurt because you thought you were losing people, but in reality, God was exposing who was truly meant to walk with you into the next chapter. And during that painful process, something inside you started changing. You became stronger emotionally, wiser spiritually, more careful with your trust. You stopped needing constant validation from people who never understood your assignment. Discernment grew inside you because betrayal forced you to see differently. The struggle also taught you humility. There were moments when you had almost nothing, yet you still kept going. You learned how to survive disappointment. You learned how to pray when answers did not come immediately. You learned how to endure silence without completely losing faith. And while people assumed you were stuck, God was developing discipline inside you. The discipline to remain focused. The discipline to move carefully. The discipline to protect your energy and your future. What nobody understood is that your spirit was evolving during the isolation. You were healing from wounds nobody apologized for, breaking cycles nobody else wanted to confront, growing in places where most people would have given up completely. That is why this next season will surprise everyone, because they only saw the struggle, but they never saw the transformation happening behind closed doors. Why God told you to stay silent. Chosen one. God says there is a reason your spirit has been pulling you away from oversharing lately. A reason you no longer feel comfortable announcing every plan, every dream, or every blessing before it fully manifests. You learned the hard way that not everybody listening to you is celebrating you. Some people gather information about your life without ever intending to support your future. That is why God told you to stay silent, because certain blessings become vulnerable when exposed too early. The moment you announce a breakthrough before its time, you attract energies that were never meant to have access to your vision. Jealousy begins watching. competition begins forming. Manipulation begins hiding behind fake encouragement. And sometimes the people clapping the loudest are secretly hoping you fail. God says many chosen ones delayed their own progress by speaking too soon. They revealed ideas before they were protected. They trusted people who only wanted access. They confused attention with support. But this next season requires wisdom. Think about a seed buried underground. Before anyone sees growth above the surface, something important is already happening in secret. Roots are forming quietly. Strength is developing invisibly. And if that seed were constantly dug up before its time, it would never fully grow. That is exactly why God hid your blessing. Not to punish you, but to protect you. Because there are people around you who can handle your struggle, but cannot handle your elevation. They were comfortable when you were doubting yourself. Comfortable when doors stayed closed. Comfortable when your confidence was broken. But the moment your life starts changing, their true spirit will begin revealing itself. God says, pay attention to the people who become strangely distant when good things happen for you. Pay attention to those who minimize your growth, ignore your progress, or suddenly act competitive when you start healing. Not every smile is genuine. Some people celebrate your potential publicly while privately resenting the fact that you are becoming everything they underestimated. This is why silence became your protection. Silence protects your peace. Silence protects your focus. Silence protects your spiritual energy from unnecessary interference. You do not need to explain every move God is making in your life. You do not need constant validation from people who were never assigned to your destiny. The truth is, some battles were attacking you through distraction, through opinions, through negative energy disguised as concern. But God says this next blessing will grow differently, quietly, strategically, protected. And before heaven reveals what is coming next, God is removing certain people from around you for a reason. Because everybody celebrating your journey is not truly connected to your purpose. The strange behavior you started noticing. Chosen one. Have you noticed how differently some people have been acting around you lately? The conversations feel strange now. The energy feels heavier. Certain people who once ignored you suddenly pay close attention to everything you do. And others who used to support you openly now seem distant, irritated, or quietly competitive. God says this is not your imagination. Some people can sense your elevation before it becomes visible. Before the money arrives, before the success becomes public, before the breakthrough fully manifests, something in the spiritual realm shifts around a chosen one. Your confidence changes, your discernment sharpens, your energy becomes harder to manipulate, and people unconsciously react to the transformation happening inside you. That is why fake smiles started becoming easier to notice. You began hearing passive-aggressive comments disguised as jokes. People started questioning your decisions more often. Some became strangely curious about your finances, your opportunities, your plans, or the people connected to your future. Others pulled away emotionally without explanation. And what hurts the most is that some of this energy came from people you genuinely loved. Friends who once celebrated you now act uncomfortable around your growth. Family members who should support you sometimes compete with you silently. Certain people only felt secure when you were struggling, confused, or emotionally dependent on them. But now they see something changing. They see your healing. They see your focus. They see your peace returning. And even if they cannot fully explain it, they recognize that you are no longer the same person they once had access to. God says not every relationship was designed to follow you into your next season. Some people were only assigned to a chapter of your life, not the entire story. Their purpose was temporary. And when your spirit started evolving, the connection naturally became uncomfortable. That does not mean you hate them. It does not mean you must become cold-hearted or paranoid. But it does mean you need discernment, because not everyone walking beside you is walking with pure intentions. Some people are attached to your history, but disconnected from your destiny. And the closer your breakthrough gets, the more obvious those differences will become. That is why God has been teaching you to observe quietly, instead of explaining yourself constantly. In this season, silence will reveal more truth than confrontation ever could. The big surprise God has been preparing. Chosen one. After everything you have endured, God says the season of silent struggle is coming to an end. What heaven has been preparing for you is bigger than the disappointments that tried to convince you to give up. And the reason the process felt so long is because this blessing had to be built carefully, strategically, and at the right time. Because what is coming next is not small. God says a major shift is approaching your life. For some of you, this will come through unexpected financial elevation, a business opportunity you never saw coming, a connection that changes everything, a sudden open door that places you in rooms you once prayed about in silence. Others will experience relocation, career breakthroughs, restored stability, or opportunities that completely transform their future. And the shocking part is how quickly it will happen. After years of delay, movement. After isolation, visibility. After confusion, clarity. God says people are about to witness a version of you they never expected to see. Not because you became arrogant, but because heaven finally released what was being prepared behind closed doors. There were moments when you thought nothing was happening. Moments when your prayers felt ignored. Moments when you wondered if your sacrifices even mattered. But every time you stayed faithful during the struggle, something was being built spiritually that you could not yet see physically. Your discipline mattered. Your tears mattered. Your obedience mattered. Every time you kept going without recognition, heaven was recording your endurance. And now the reward season is approaching. God says some blessings arrive gradually, but others appear suddenly after long periods of silence. That is why your life may begin changing faster than people around you can understand. Doors that stayed closed for years will suddenly open at once. Delayed answers will begin arriving rapidly. The opportunities you chased unsuccessfully in the past may now start finding you effortlessly, because divine timing changes everything. The same people who overlooked you during your hidden season will soon wonder how your life transformed so quickly. But they did not see the private preparation. They did not see the nights you fought emotional battles alone. They did not see the moments you kept believing while everything around you looked uncertain. God did. And that hidden faithfulness is about to be rewarded publicly. This next chapter will not just change your finances. It will change your confidence, your environment, your mindset, and your future. The struggle taught you how to survive, but this next season will teach you how to receive. And God says the surprise will be greater than what you originally prayed for. Why wealth changes relationships instantly. Chosen one. God says one of the hardest parts of elevation is not the struggle before success, it is learning how people react after your life begins changing. Because money does not just change circumstances, it reveals intentions that were hidden all along. The moment favor touches your life, people begin seeing you differently. Some who ignored your pain will suddenly remember your name. People who disappeared during your hardest seasons may return acting supportive, loyal, and emotionally connected again. Old friends may start checking on you more often. Certain family members may suddenly become deeply interested in your plans, your income, or the opportunities surrounding your future. But God says, you must be careful. Not every reunion is genuine. Some people are attracted to access, not connection. They are drawn to what your elevation can provide, not who you truly are. And if you are not spiritually discerning, guilt can become the trap that drains the very blessing God worked so hard to place in your hands. Because many chosen ones carry compassionate hearts. You remember what it felt like to struggle. You remember rejection, lack, and disappointment. So when success finally arrives, part of you wants to save everyone. You want to help every person who once supported you, every relative facing hardship, every friend with problems, every person asking for access to your energy and resources. But God says wisdom must guide your generosity, because some people will emotionally manipulate your kindness. They will say you changed. They will accuse you of forgetting where you came from. They will try to make you feel guilty for creating boundaries that protect your peace. But the truth is, growth naturally changes access. The version of you that survived pain cannot continue operating the same way once God begins elevating your life. If you keep giving everyone unlimited access to your time, your energy, your finances, and your focus, you risk returning to the exhaustion God delivered you from. That is why boundaries are necessary in this next season. Not to become cold-hearted, not to become arrogant, but to remain healthy, spiritually aligned, and emotionally protected. God says some people celebrated your struggle because it made them feel comfortable. but your success forces them to confront their own lack of growth, discipline, or healing. And instead of being inspired, some will quietly become resentful. This is why discernment matters more than popularity. You do not owe everybody explanations for protecting what God entrusted to you. Real love will respect your growth. Real support will not compete with your peace. And the people truly assigned to your destiny will celebrate your elevation without secretly wishing for your downfall. The spiritual meaning behind financial elevation. Chosen. 1. God says the blessing coming into your life is about far more than money. Yes, financial elevation is part of the transformation, but the deeper purpose is spiritual. Because true abundance is not only about what you can buy, it is about what you can finally break, heal, and rebuild. For years you survived in limitation. You learned how to live with stress, uncertainty, emotional pressure, and instability. You carried burdens that were never supposed to follow you for a lifetime, and many of those struggles did not begin with you. They were cycles passed down through generations: fear, lack, survival mode, broken thinking, emotional wounds, and constant instability. But God says your elevation is connected to generational healing. You are not just becoming successful for yourself. You are becoming the person who changes the direction of your bloodline. The one who introduces peace where there was chaos, wisdom where there was confusion, stability where there was struggle. That is why this season requires spiritual maturity. Because wealth without wisdom destroys people. Influence without humility corrupts people. And blessings without discipline can quickly become distractions. God says remain grounded when the opportunities arrive. Do not allow success to harden your heart or inflate your ego. Remember the seasons that taught you compassion. Remember the pain that forced you to grow spiritually. Remember the moments when all you had was faith. Because the real power of abundance is stewardship. It is using your blessings wisely. It is knowing when to give, when to protect your peace, and when to say no without guilt. It is understanding that God entrusted you with elevation not only to enjoy life, but to create impact, freedom, and healing for the future generations connected to you. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this transformation is that your spirit is changing along with your circumstances. You no longer dream only about survival. You are beginning to think differently, speak differently, carry yourself differently. Your mindset is expanding beyond fear because God is preparing you for rooms, opportunities, and responsibilities that require a healed and disciplined version of you. This is why your hidden season was necessary. God was not only building your finances, He was building your character strong enough to sustain the blessing once it arrived. The test that comes before the breakthrough. Chosen one. God says the reason this season has felt so heavy lately is because you are standing closer to breakthrough than you realize. And one of the greatest spiritual patterns is this: the hardest battles often appear right before your life changes. That is why the attacks became more intense. The doubt grew louder. The exhaustion became deeper. The delays became more frustrating. And the temptation to quit suddenly appeared stronger than ever before. Because something inside you could feel the transition approaching. You may have noticed how everything started testing your emotions at once. Unexpected betrayal, confusion in relationships, financial pressure, mental fatigue, moments where it felt like nothing was moving no matter how hard you prayed or worked. God says these final tests were not designed to destroy you. They were designed to reveal whether you would keep believing even when the breakthrough was not yet visible. Because faith is easy when doors are opening, but real spiritual endurance is built when everything around you looks uncertain. The enemy often attacks hardest when your season is about to change. Why? Because if he can convince you to quit now, you may walk away right before the reward arrives. That is why so many chosen ones experience emotional warfare before elevation. The pressure increases because your spirit is moving into new territory. And during these transition seasons, God says silence becomes strategy. Not every battle needs to be announced publicly. Not every frustration needs explanation. Sometimes heaven isolates you temporarily so your focus can remain protected while transformation finishes its work inside you. Because distractions become dangerous right before destiny shifts. This is why you have felt pulled away from certain environments, conversations, and people lately. Your spirit understands that something sacred is being prepared, even if your physical eyes cannot fully see it yet. And although the waiting exhausted you, God says, do not confuse delay with denial. Everything is aligning at the appointed time. The breakthrough did not disappear. The promise did not fail. The process simply required preparation stronger than your emotions could initially understand. So if you have been feeling tired, discouraged, or emotionally stretched, this is your confirmation. Do not quit in the middle of the transition, because the version of you emerging from this battle will not resemble the person who entered it. And what God is about to release into your life will make this entire season finally make sense. The moment everyone realizes you changed. Chosen one, there comes a moment when the transformation can no longer stay hidden, not because you announce it loudly, not because you try to prove yourself, but because the peace, confidence, and strength God built inside you become impossible for people to ignore. And suddenly, everyone notices the difference. The same person who once over-explained everything now moves in silence. The person who used to chase validation now protects their peace. The one who once tolerated disrespect now walks away calmly without fear of losing people. God says this is what true elevation looks like. It is not only financial, it is spiritual, emotional, mental. The greatest evidence that God changed your life is not the money alone, it is the stability people now feel when they encounter you. There is a calmness in your energy that did not exist before, a wisdom in your words, a confidence that no longer depends on approval from others. And ironically, once you stop needing validation, people begin seeking yours. Now the same individuals who overlooked you want access to your attention. Some suddenly admire your discipline. Others become curious about how you transformed so much. People who once doubted your vision may now ask for advice, support, or connection because your growth became undeniable. But what they do not fully understand is how much pain created this version of you. They did not see the nights you battled anxiety alone. They did not see the disappointments that forced you to mature emotionally. They did not see the prayers whispered through tears when you felt abandoned and exhausted. Yet every painful season shaped your spirit into someone stronger, wiser, and more discerning. And now, for the first time in a long time, you are no longer desperate for people to understand you. That emotional need has broken. God says this is part of your healing, because freedom begins when your peace becomes more important than public approval. You no longer feel the need to convince everyone of your worth, explain every decision, or prove your destiny to people committed to misunderstanding you. The transformation speaks for itself now. Your energy changed, your standards changed, your mindset changed, and the people around you can feel it, even if they cannot fully explain it. This is the season where silent growth becomes visible success. Not forced, not performative, just undeniable. And the most satisfying part is this: you finally understand that everything you survived was shaping you into the person you were always meant to become. Chosen one, after everything you have been through, God says it is finally time for you to understand the truth about your hidden season. You were never forgotten. You were protected. Every delay that frustrated you, every closed door that broke your heart, every season where you felt isolated, overlooked, or abandoned was serving a purpose greater than what you could see at the time. Because if certain opportunities had opened too early, they would have destroyed you instead of blessing you. If certain people had remained in your life, they would have delayed your destiny. If God had exposed your future before your spirit was mature enough to carry it, the pressure, envy, manipulation, and distractions surrounding your elevation could have pulled you completely off course. That is why heaven hid you, not because you lacked value, but because your future required protection. God says many people misunderstood your silence. They assumed your isolation meant failure. They thought your slower season meant you were falling behind. Some even judged you because your breakthrough did not happen on their timeline. But what they could not see was the spiritual construction happening underneath the surface. While they were watching appearances, God was rebuilding your foundation, strengthening your discernment, healing your emotional wounds, breaking unhealthy attachments, teaching you discipline, patience, wisdom, and spiritual endurance. And now you finally understand why certain relationships had to end, why some prayers were delayed, Why some doors refuse to open no matter how badly you wanted them to. Because not every environment deserved access to the version of you God was creating. Some blessings are too sacred to announce prematurely. Some victories grow best in silence, and some seasons require privacy because heaven is protecting the process from unnecessary interference. God says your silence was never weakness, it was strategy. Your hidden season was not evidence of rejection, it was evidence of divine preservation. And now, as this new chapter begins unfolding, you no longer feel desperate to prove yourself to people who misunderstood your journey. You realize that every painful moment carried purpose, even when it made no sense emotionally. The betrayal taught discernment. The delays taught patience. The isolation taught dependence on God instead of constant approval from people. Everything was preparing you for this moment. So when your life begins changing publicly, remember this revelation. God hid you because your calling was too important to expose before the appointed time. And what heaven protected in private will soon speak for itself publicly.